Well, thank you, Krzysztof, for being today with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how did you got started with working on developer tools?
Well, so when I started, I have a background in game dev, right? When I was younger, I used to do game engines mostly because for games you actually have to have graphics and you have to have designers. Whereas for tech, you don't need to do that, right? You can focus on like the algorithm and the structures and all this stuff. So when I started mobile, it was a little different since the abstractions were much higher. Like you could do a lot of things with what Apple gave you. What's really nice about that is that it makes it easier for people to learn, but I had this itch that I wanted to make things even better. And so for me, it was always like I had the past experience building tools and frameworks and all this stuff, and I wanted to see what I can make to make the day-to-day life easier for myself and other people. So I think that is what drove me to work on frameworks and ideas for like something unique, something new, something that has not been done before, and not waiting for Apple to do it. Yeah.
Right. So, do you have any tips for iOS developers that are probably working on a feature and they see that there are many pain points that they can improve, but they're not sure how to start working with developer tools?
Okay. So, in my perspective, like the biggest change you can make is in your perception, right? So, if you're looking for ideas to improve something, you have to stop thinking about, well, this is something I'm facing, and start to consider, if I'm wasting 5 minutes now, right? I'm wasting 5 minutes because I have to deal with this architecture design that's not ideal, or this workflow that's not what I would want. Is this something that everyone else is having, or is this specific to you? If it's that specific to you, then maybe it's not worth doing. Like, it's not always like wasting time, like investing time into tools doesn't always make sense, right? The tools only make sense if people will be using it, other people will be using it. So whenever I face a pain point in my development, I ask myself, is this a pain point that everyone else is facing? Is this something that happens across the teams, across even the community, across the different projects? And if the answer is yes, which a lot of the time it is, then I start thinking, well, what is the simplest thing I could do to make this a little better? It's not about building very complex solutions and taking months to build something, because a lot of the open source projects I have, they are projects that took me like up to a week to build, and that was after hours. That wasn't really, a week like full-time development, like the lifetime tracker, right? Like I had this problem, I had to fix retain cycles over and over again, and that was very annoying, and I know everyone else has to deal with that. So I thought to myself, well, what is a retain cycle, right? How can you verify if you have a retain cycle? And the answer was very simple. For most types in your project, you know how many instances there should be of those types, especially for like view controllers, right? You know that in regular workflow of your application, you only have one profile, or you have only one timeline view controller. And if you ever have more, that means you have a retain cycle. So what's the simplest way to check that, right? You just count the instances that are live. And the lifetime tracker project is really simple. Like the tracking component is extremely simple. The only complexity is like the UI to show it. So whenever a developer faces a problem, the first question they should ask, is this common? Is this something everyone else faces? And then you can do math in your head, right? Okay, so it's 5 minutes, but I have 30 developers in my team, right. So it's 150 minutes per day. So if I spend a week fixing this, how long does it take for this to pay for itself?
Right.
And the answer is pretty quickly.
Yeah, it is.
And that's how I approach it.
That's awesome advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.